Hello, this is Vincent from Tiksu to UniTartu, and today, on this episode, we're going to be talking all about speaking and learning Estonian. I'm joined here today by two Estonian teachers from the University of Tartu, and a third person who is an international student who has taken it upon themselves to learn Estonian. Today, we're going to tell you all about the advantages of learning Estonian and what you can do with it in Estonia, some of our best tips and tricks on learning Estonian, and some more insights from language teachers and students of the language. So sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy this episode of Tiksu to UniTartu. Guys, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, I am Sally. I have been teaching Estonian here in the University of Tartu for 10 years already. Yeah, since 2014.
Hello, my name is Gerli, and I have taught Estonian for 9 years, and I'm working at University of Tartu. And I would also like to add that I have taught very many different levels, starting from the beginners, 0 level, up to B2 level.
Hello, I'm Rodolfo. I'm originally from Italy, and I'm about to defend my thesis at the University of Tartu.
All right, Rodolfo, so you are a fluent Estonian speaker and a foreigner. I wanted to just ask, how did you start learning Estonian and why?
So before starting my doctorate here at the University of Tartu, I was studying Finnish as a major at the University of Naples L'Orientale, it's called. And I was very interested in the language, so that got me more and more interested in linguistics, which is my specialization right now. I got the chance to go to Helsinki for an exchange semester, and from there I got a scholarship to go to a student conference in Warsaw, where I met some people from the University of Tartu and they told me that they had PhD spots in Tartu. So I decided to give it a go, and it was very random. Wasn't planned, and eventually I had to learn Estonian. Mm-hmm. So it just came sort of like naturally, but also through peer pressure, because I had to do presentations at the doctoral seminar and so on, and people were pressuring for me to do them in Estonian. Yeah. So I really had no choice.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good enough reason.
Yeah.
And I know, Gerli, you mentioned that the levels you teach. Sally, what levels do you teach Estonian?
I teach mainly beginners because we have so many beginners, but I've also taught other levels up to B1, I would say, yes.
Okay. So a big concern for people coming to Estonian is, do I need to learn Estonian? What would you guys say is the absolute need to be learning Estonian and to know Estonian to get by here in Tartu?
I think it is necessary just because Estonians like you better if you do. Otherwise, I think in Estonia you can manage without if you speak English, because Estonians like to show off their English skills as well. But for sure, Estonians really love it when you at least try to speak Estonian to them.
What would you say, like what's the percentile of people that speak English, or?
Well, I would say that like 90% of younger people at least would speak English, or at least get by.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. What kind of advantages besides just having people love you for speaking the language, what are some other advantages you might have to speak Estonian here in Estonia?
Mm-hmm. I would say that it also makes you feel more part of the society, and it is much easier to blend in if you are capable of taking part in everyday conversations. And maybe, yes, in everyday conversations, people tend to switch to English quite quickly because we know English, we want to show that we know it. But when it gets more specific, like, I don't know, for example, if you have to go to, I don't know, hospital, for example, or you are at the reception desk in some other place, or you are traveling in smaller places, people don't know English so much then, and it's good to know at least basics, I would say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people that once they hear that your pronunciation or your accent isn't quite there, they might switch to English. But I think some of the most rewarding interactions for me are with people that don't speak English, because then I actually get to try to use my my Estonian, like with some of the older generation or certain professions. So, Rodolfo, what's your take on and any advantages of knowing Estonian in Estonia?
So I think you can get by with English perfectly. I know a ton of people who haven't learned a single word of Estonian while being here for maybe 10 plus years. But also at the same time, I feel it's kind of nice for both the locals and yourself to learn something about the local culture, and you can learn more about the local culture through language, so that you can feel more part of the community and not just another one of those foreigners who steal Estonians' jobs or whatnot.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Estonian women.
Right. And women like it too, so.
Of course. So everybody here is somewhat of a polyglot. You guys all speak multiple languages. How hard would you say is Estonian to learn compared to other languages?
So I would say that it depends really on what's your story there, because for me it was hard because I started with Finnish, and they're similar enough so that learning Estonian through Finnish was kind of like resetting my brain, rewiring my brain around a language that is basically almost the same, but it doesn't make any sense at the same time. And I experienced, as an Italian native speaker, I experienced the same with Portuguese, for example. So for me, Portuguese I haven't learned it, but when I wanted to learn it, it was very hard because there was no novelty. But that's just the kind of learner I am. So I need this challenge to actually keep going in the language learning process, sort of. But then again, there's other people who are comfortable with languages that are very similar to their home language. Like if you're a Dutch speaker, you might be very comfortable with learning Swedish or German. But for me, it's just kind of boring.
Yeah, for myself, I think Estonian's been very difficult just because I'm kind of the monolingual. I learned Spanish in school, but I think my brain's kind of wired because I've never had to use another language. Is sometimes I'm thinking of Estonian and a Spanish word will pop into my head because it's just the other foreign language. So, and there's sounds that I've never heard before in English, and they don't exist in English. But you guys do teach Estonian to foreigners. I wanted to ask you, what kind of aspects of the Estonian language are most difficult for people to learn?
In my opinion, for beginners at least, the hardest part is to learn the vocabulary, because in Estonian we have this thing that the 3 first forms, you have to learn them by heart. There's literally no other way. So this is something that they don't really believe you at the beginning, that you have to learn them by heart. So they will see it in the process. But I think this is the hardest, because you have one word in English, but you have to know the 3 forms in Estonian. I think this is very challenging.
And in addition to memorizing the forms, you also need to memorize when actually to use them. Because, for example, when we take even vesi, vee, vet, nominative, genitive, partitive, they all have different functions in the sentences. And you need to know when to use which form. And that's also very complicated. And verbs also change, so you need to study ma infinitive, da infinitive, you need to study the first person, because then you're able to use the other 5 as well. So it is complicated, and in the beginning there are quite many things that you actually need to memorize, and you just cannot come up with the forms if you don't know them. You have to know them. So it is quite tricky for the beginners, for sure. But for
But I would just want to say that, let's not let it sound that Estonian is hard. It has very strict kind of rules, and of course exceptions. But I think in general, if you get the rules, then for me grammar is my love. So I really like grammar. But if you understand the grammar, then you already know how to use it later on. If you have the basic rules. So the basic rules, it takes time, but after you get it, it's kind of straightforward.
If I may add something. So my opinion on that is that it may be hard because you have to learn all these rules, but what people don't understand is that if you don't start actually using the words and the grammar, even through making a lot of mistakes and so on, you're never going to be able to reach fluency. So in my case, my Estonian it's still like not perfect, obviously. It's nothing compared to a native speaker's Estonian, but am I fluent? I think so, because I just speak. I make a lot of mistakes, even after 5 years of speaking Estonian. I don't care. So this is really the key to make the jump from being a newbie, a noob learner, to be a pro sort of like speaker of Estonian.
Yeah, my understanding is Estonians still make, correct me if I'm wrong, but Estonians still make a lot of mistakes with the grammar in different cases. My personal experience is that my girlfriend's family, they only speak Estonian, but her mom's kind of from the countryside and doesn't speak very good Estonian, so me learning from the books is a little bit difficult because she uses so much slang and there's stuff that I don't understand. But would you guys say, like, generally the pronunciation, if you're using, I know you brought the example like vevet, if you use the wrong form, are people still going to understand you?
Probably yes.
If they want to.
They won't. Otherwise, they might correct you.
Yes.
But I completely agree with Rodolfo that practicing is so important, and not to be afraid of making mistakes, because this is also part of learning process. And I have noticed that during these years, it seems to me that my students, younger students, they are not afraid of making mistakes so much like they were used to. So it's getting better, I hope. And also you need to use the language, because if you are just studying the theory, you will not become a speaker as well. That's completely true.
I agree with that, because all of the foreign languages that I've learned, the only ones that I feel actually comfortable speaking is where I've been in a really uncomfortable situation where I really only can use the foreign language by making many mistakes and really being bad at it. But now I feel comfortable. So.
Yeah, I think that's like a good starting point. Like I mentioned before, having those situations where I only have to use Estonian, even though I know I butchered the language, but as long as the other person can understand me, I feel really fulfilled and kind of want to continue to learn the language.
And I think people really appreciate the effort you put into it, even though it's not perfect. Because,
absolutely.
I mean, you're still speaking one more language than they are, right? It's their native language. And
well, maybe not me.
I'm just saying, if you think about it as, this is your second or third or fourth language, this should encourage you to actually carry on and be a little better. Or if you don't want to be better, just try your best, I guess.
Yeah. So I had a question kind of geared straight towards the Estonian teachers. What are the biggest demographic you see taking your classes? Is it specifically people from one country, maybe people just visiting on Erasmus, or enlighten me?
I think it used to be more Erasmus students, but now we have like really all types of students, and sometimes there might be more Germans, I think. For example, at the moment I have a group mainly consisting of Germans, but I think it's very, very versatile by now.
I also agree that demographics of Estonian learners is very diverse. We have students from many different countries, and like Sally said at the moment that she has group consisting of Germans mostly, but I have only one German in my beginners group, so it may be quite different. And there are students who are in their degree studies, who are taking or who are doing their masters here, Erasmus students, PhD students, also workers of university. So we do have people with a very different background.
Do you find like people with a specific native language have an easier time learning Estonian?
I would say yes, but it really depends on a person. So I do think that for Germans, Estonian is a bit easier. I don't really know why, if that might be because German has influenced Estonian quite a lot, but also might be that the structure or idea of learning is similar, because maybe they are not so afraid of learning things by heart, so I see them putting their work into it. So I would say that they usually manage. Of course, for Finnish people, it's relatively easy if they work on it. If they don't, they just write Finnish everywhere. But yes, of course, and Hungarians, I haven't had that many Hungarian students, but I do think that since they're related, Estonian and Hungarian, the grammar part is also easier for them.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, maybe you can touch a bit on the etymology. I know you mentioned Hungarian, but could you maybe touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, as Rodolfo also already mentioned, Finnish and Estonian are super similar, but annoyingly different as well. So it's sometimes hard. So I have seen a lot of Finnish students just writing Finnish everywhere in the tests. So I'm saying that like it's not that easy. You have to put a bit more work into it. But for Hungarians, I think that well, we like to say that we're relatives, and obviously the languages are relatives, but there's still this thing that it only comes up in some specific words that are similar, like Gerli had the word water before, vesi. In Hungarian it would be viis. So there are similarities and you can recognize the words. But still I think the grammar structure is the main thing that is similar.
Yeah, most of the, or not most, but some of the old words are having the same root, so they are easily recognizable, so you understand. But yes, if you have very similar mother tongue, it can be advantage, but on the other hand, it can be a problem as well. And I would say that it actually depends on a person's motivation a lot, and also the learning habits. Like, are you ready to put effort in studying language? Also in practicing, are you open to practice? And that's maybe more important than your mother tongue, actually.
Yeah, I know we touched on it earlier that you really need to be out there speaking, but what are some kind of recommendations you can give for somebody trying to practice their Estonian, or maybe they haven't even arrived in Estonia yet and they want to start practicing? Rodolfo, maybe you could help us out here.
So I'll give the example of Finnish again, because what works really well in these cultures is that everything is subtitled. Almost everything is subtitled. So in Estonian, as I did for Finnish, when I was in Finland, I was watching The Simpsons in English with Finnish subtitles, and that's a big help for language learning. And as for The Simpsons, you can find any kind of media you like and just consume it. Watch a lot of it. You find a channel maybe on the TV that you like, or something on the internet that you're really fond of, and just watch it and make sure you understand it and you have subtitles. And even Estonian content with Estonian subtitles can help even more, because when you see written Estonian, it's fairly kind of straightforward if you have the basis. But when you hear it spoken, it's just a completely different story. As for Estonian, for every other language. So my recommendation is just use the resources available for you as creatively as possible, and as in a fun way, sort of, so that you make your learning process less of a struggle and more of a good thing, for yourself.
Yeah, I've noticed that if I'm watching a certain type of media and I have the context, then I'm able to kind of fill in the blanks. If I don't understand one or two words in a sentence, then given the context, I can kind of fill it in, and that helps me learn a bit as well. But I kind of notice it's just my personal perspective is that there's not that many resources in terms of media. There's maybe 3 channels here in Estonia, and there's not so many resources for learning Estonian in terms of people subtitling it and whatnot. But obviously, The Simpsons is, yes.
That's a good one. Movies, they have subtitles, and for example, if you're into movies.
We also have very good website Jupiter that has TV series, films, TV shows. And some of them also have Estonian subtitles. So most of them are in Estonian, but you can add subtitles as well. For example, we have this very famous TV series, Õnne 13, and I know that some of my students watch that with Estonian subtitles. And the plot is so slow that makes it easier to follow it. So Jupiter and also Lasteekran.
It's mainly for kids, but you can watch Peppa the Pig and things like this. It also helps. And I think also just making it your background noise helps as well. Just listen to Estonian music and these things, so it stops being noise at one point.
Yeah, I think that's how I was actually first introduced to the Estonian language is through the music, and I really appreciated the music, especially a lot of the more traditional stuff, and so that's kind of helped me a little bit with my pronunciation.
It helps to get used with the sound of Estonian.
Yeah.
And when you start to understand at least some of the words, it's already a huge thing, because then you feel that, okay, I have already achieved something and I could proceed.
If I can add something on the background noise, I completely agree, and I'm glad you brought it up, because a lot of us think that learning is just limited to the classroom and to the written and, when you read and write in the language. But think about children, how they learn the language. They acquire the language through context, through being constantly exposed to the language. And if you live in Estonia, there's no better way of being completely immersed in the language. So if you don't take advantage of that, it just shows that you lack the knowledge of how actually to effectively learn the language, and not that the Estonian is hard, because everything through repetition will become easier and easier.
Exactly. I love that you said that, because this is what I'm saying always to our other teachers as well, that we don't have to teach everything in the class, because the students have the advantage they're in Estonia, so they are in the environment, they can use it whenever they want it, they can hear it whenever they want it. So I do think it's super important to really understand that this is a huge resource.
Yeah, definitely. Have you guys ever heard Estonian outside of Estonia? I want to just kind of throw this out here, because sometimes I'm in other countries and I hear Estonian, I'm like, I have an aha moment and I feel special. Maybe Rodolfo?
Yeah, so at some point there were very cheap flights from Tallinn to Naples, and I was walking in my home region and hearing Estonian in Naples city center, which was pretty interesting. That was something that had never happened in my life before.
The big question is, did you maintain your Estonian demeanor? Did you approach them or did you not?
Oh, no, I didn't approach them, of course. As I wouldn't probably approach Italians here. I mean,
Maybe that's different for Americans. I hear an American accent, I'm like right over there. Gerli,
we have the saying that there is at least one Estonian in every harbor when you're traveling. And a few years ago, when I was traveling with my friend in the States, actually, we met two girls in the same hostel, and they were sitting in front of the hostel, and we were listening to them, and after that we start talking and also spend some time together. But maybe I don't know, it depends where are you traveling at the moment. It also depends on your personality, but I was so far from home, and it made me like home. I felt like home, so it was good for me to get acquainted with them.
You mentioned you heard Estonian in the States. It's actually surprising to me. There's actually a big Estonian population there. There's actually, my mom's a big fan of Vana Tallinn, and I bring home, presents every once in a while. And I had noticed that there's actually an Estonian house that does Estonian summer camps, completely in Estonian language, right near the, close to the town. So
there are many Estonian communities there, I think, because of the wars and things that have happened in the past. So there were many people who fled with their families, and many of the descendants still live there. And also, I think it's just that people want to feel at home or have something that feels familiar. So I have also some relatives who moved to the States, let's say around 10 years ago, and they are always going to this Estonian house and doing way more Estonian things than we do here. So I think it's just that the people want to keep their roots close to them.
Yeah, especially when you're far from home, it makes you feel closer when you're participating in those traditions and whatnot. So for somebody just arriving at the University of Tartu, how do they get started on their path of Estonian learning, and how does that work with the curriculum?
So firstly, if you are studying in English-based curriculum, you have to take one course of Estonian language. It is mandatory to take the beginner's course, and it gives you 6 credits. And these lessons take place twice in a week. And after that, you can continue your studies. We have 3 other beginner's courses, in pre-intermediate courses, and we have courses up to level C1. So we have covered everything. There is a big variety, and you can definitely find suitable course for yourself. And I have also noticed that most of the students who take the beginner's course continue their studies, because I will meet them again in the future in some other courses. And it's very, very good to see that, actually, because then I can see the progress. And it's very important to a teacher to see how they have developed their knowledge. So it's important for me also.
Yeah, and I think many students might skip a semester or 2, but then they come back if they have a job here or family, and they just want to kind of brush up their Estonian again.
And from this autumn semester, from new academic year, we will have one new intensive course, and there will be 4 lectures per week in the mornings. So if you want to develop your knowledge quicker, if you want to dig deeper, then just during the beginner's course, it's open, and you can register for this course as well. It starts from the 0 level.
Are these courses also available for external students or people outside of the university?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Well, we're actually running low on time here, guys. I wanted to ask you guys one question. What could you recommend as some Estonian media? What's your favorite Estonian media? Music, show, movie? What's one thing you can recommend? Maybe Sally?
Wow, that's a hard one. I would say I'm still with the music. I think for learning Estonian, or not even learning, as said, as a background noise, I think for pronunciation and just being part of the Estonian community, music is super important. And Estonians are this crazy about music, so I think
given the history as well.
Exactly. So I think music is the best one. If you listen to Estonian bands like, I don't know, Curly Strings or this folk pop bands, I think this is something that everyone knows, so it also makes you part of the community more. Plus I think they usually have nice lyrics and things, so it helps your pronunciation and understanding as well.
Yeah, Curly Strings was actually the first kind of band I got into, so. And Curly?
It's actually a difficult question. I also like music. I also like different Estonian bands. But at the same time, I'm thinking that if you would like to listen a little bit longer, and if you feel that you have motivation, then maybe some good TV shows from our national broadcast. For example, maybe Hommik Anuga. Or Prillitoos, that also has the possibility, if you watch it from Jupiter, you can also add subtitles, which makes it easier to understand. And I don't know, I think that it's just a matter of taking step by step. So start with the songs and then continue with longer interviews, for example. The most important thing is to find the thing that you're actually interested in, because then it is so much easier for you, it's more fun, and it helps to memorize better as well, if you have the context and everything.
Yeah, so similar answer. I wouldn't feel like recommending anything specific, because everybody likes, like each one of us likes different things. So you really have to find your own. But for me, what works is listening to Television every morning, like with my morning coffee or something. It's nothing specific, like they change topics every time, but maybe it could be something, an insight into Estonian culture as well. It's not, I think that Estonian TV is not very trashy compared to Italian TV, for example. So there's a lot of quality there. You can actually learn new things, not only about Estonian, but about other countries as well.
And you're filled up with the news as well, so you already
Yeah.
know what's going on
Right.
or what people are talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can recommend some of like the historical fiction movies, like The Fencer or The Little Comrade, stuff that kind of helps you get perspective on the Estonian history if you weren't really, fully knowledgeable about it. Would you guys like to add anything at the end here, or?
Well, I would say that people should come to our courses because I think still that we are the best resource of Estonian. So I really recommend our courses to give you the basics, and after that, all the background noise and everything is welcome.
We have worked with our material a lot, so we have changed that. We try to be updated all the time. And I think that our team is incredibly motivated and devoted. So absolutely, you are very welcome and give us the chance to teach you. So come and join.
Yeah, and just be brave and speak. That's my final.
Definitely. So thank you so much for joining me today, guys. This has actually been very helpful for me as somebody trying to learn Estonian. Just to all the listeners out there to be brave, try your Estonian, try your hand at it. And this has been Tiksu to UniTartu. Thank you for listening. Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Tiksu to UniTartu. We hope you had a chill time with us. Make sure to follow the University of Tartu social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, X, and LinkedIn. And if you have any questions for us about the podcast or topics you'd like us to cover in the future, then let us know. And this has been Tiksu to UniTartu.